recording.
Hello and welcome to Card Rants with Kohler and NonGMOSalt. We will
Hi.
be discussing a lot of underused cards and just debating on what changes should be made and everything we think about them, basically.
Basically, just balance changes that we personally, this is all subjective, but yeah. So any opinions we want to have on the game, we thought we had an evening where we just talked about balance changes that needed to happen, and GMO was like, hey, why don't we make a podcast and just like go over all the cards or just discuss whatever we want. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like fun. So that's what we decided to do.
I mean, we already do it.
Yeah, we already, yeah.
Why not record it?
Yeah, might as well. And then we can get everybody else in on the opinions. But where would you like to start?
So, should we go for a specific nation or a specific archetype, like a specific deck that should be changed?
Actually, let me share my screen with you so we're on the same page as to what we're looking at via Discord, not the recording here.
Right.
All right. Does that work? Can you see what I'm looking at?
One sec. Yep, looks like it.
God, we are truly professional.
It's our first time.
It's first episode. Well, yeah, we're just digging around. So I was thinking, what do we want to go by nation? Do we want to just like go through or go by specific unit type?
I think a lot of the infantry need to be changed in some way.
I agree. Do we want to start out talking about infantry? I think that's actually a good starting point because I was having real problems with that today. So to start, let's start real quick with the deck I made called Counteroffensive, using the counteroffensive. It was basically built around counteroffensive and the deck type that works with it.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I was also experimenting with the new Winter Offensive, which is interesting. It's either a board wipe if you're from behind, or if you have any of your big stuff out and they're not damaged, it won't kill them. Like these guys won't die from one hit from this, and then you could potentially fix them up. And this new card that when you repair it, it makes another one. Is usually the deck it's done all right for me. The problem with it is it's infantry based. And going back to infantry here real quick.
Infantry are slow and big and bad.
They're not even big. That's the main problem. They're not big and bad. They're just slow. So where they tried to balance planes and tanks by giving them higher operation cost, because tanks can move and attack in the same turn and planes can attack from the back line, it's still not as bad as infantry, who need a whole turn, 3 turns actually, because you have to place them, then move them up, then they can do something in the back line. So,
yeah.
And if you lose the front
That's why
line,
blitz on an infantry is so important.
I'm sorry?
That's why blitz on an infantry is so important.
Yes, it definitely is.
Putting blitz on any infantry just makes it better by like 5 times.
Yeah, because they can actually hold the front line, like the 15th here. A wonderful card, absolutely wonderful card. To move for 0 is, I'm still divided on my opinion of should any card naturally come with 0 operation cost. I don't know. It's iffy for me.
I think the game would be way too slow if that were the case. I think there's some sort of speed that needs to be there with low operation cost units. Like, what would the 554th be with 1 operation cost?
Oh, these?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Just look at the Italian cavalry unit.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
And just look at how awful it is.
Yeah, well,
even though it can hit face the turn you play it, it is essentially if you go to the Flak 37, the German tank, it's the same. It's better stats, better unit type, and it's cheaper at the same time.
Yeah, it is. Well, overall, yeah. God, work. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, it's a crux in my German tank blitz deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that.
Now, what if you got rid of the?
Because it seems to me the way they design a lot of the cards, they're thinking of them working in specific decks, but they don't. And then of course, the players will use them in ways that the devs never expected them to be used in some cases. And it just makes them way overpowered, but not necessarily in the decks that they were meant to be in the first place. What you could just kind of tell what kind of deck like this one. This used to be one of my favorite cards because I have a frontline deck for like American Armor, and I have it in here. And it's basically meant like if you get the combo off of getting a Greyhound down one turn and then this on second turn and you move this up, you now have a 2/3 on the front line by turn 2. And when this, before we'll say breakthrough, that was a great combo. That was a hard combo to get through if you got that off. Like that would slow them down, and it would help you.
But the problem with it, it wasn't used in that context. It was used in tokens. It was used in fast hinds. It was used in Jagro to an extent, just because the effect was that powerful for any situation,
right,
or for any deck.
Right. But
I know a lot of people were super upset with 5/4 into it.
Which one?
The Russian 0K.
Oh yeah, the one you just pointed out.
5/54. You could play one of those 109th, turn 1, and then from 1 to 4, 5/54th, into the front line, turn 1, and they would all be 2/2s. Then turn 2 came, you play Unity of Strength on them, it gives a +5/+5 buff to one of them.
Yeah.
And it's just GG at that point.
But that's pure luck. That's why that wasn't really that big of a deal. Because for you to get all 3 of them in your opening hands, like that's just a stupidly amazing opening hand and an engineer. And then you have to get lucky to draw the Unity. So
to get reliable play out of that, you wouldn't necessarily aim for as many 5/54ths as possible. You'd go for sort of 1 or 2, and then try and get a 3/21st, which are the 1K which spawn a dude when they die.
Yeah.
And you'd get that in the front line turn 2. That's like the Akita regiment of a tokens deck. And that would be a 2/3. And then turn 3 rather, you would play a Unity of Strength on something for a +3/+3, and by then it would just be a mass of stats in the front line that you can't get through because they're also playing reserves in the back line for you to get through once you're done destroying the front line units.
Right. It does. I mean, so I can.
It would just be so many stats for a 1K unit you play on turn 1. The 109th.
Yeah, but what were you saying they were considering? What was the other change they were considering? To the
removing smokescreen was one of them.
That wouldn't be so bad.
Another one was just making it US units only. But they decided that a lot of other decks were using it, and why just make the ability slightly worse, but make it not die to a sickle, so it was less luck dependent on whether the enemy had removal or not.
They really balanced the card around Bloody Sickle.
Oh no! But like any 1K unit or ping rather, like Desert Rats, there are quite a few of them. Let me look. Just type in one.
Hierarchy.
Air superiority, direct hit. Winter warfare. Albacore was a big one.
Yeah, there's a lot of one damage things. I know.
Tora. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. It did die pretty easily, but I don't. Giving it 2 health doesn't really. I mean, it still dies pretty easily, even for having smokescreen. And the +1 attack doesn't really help you hold on to the front line. Like I don't know.
Yeah, that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Now it's sort of an awkward Type 93, where the buff isn't immediate, but it's
nearly
permanent.
It's a Type 93 because you have to take the front line of the unit to get the +1.
That's why it said it's an awkward Type 93. It underperforms where it wants to, and overperforms where it doesn't want to.
Yeah, which makes it sound
like no one's gonna be able to remove. You're not gonna be able to remove that for the first couple turns because you're busy dealing with whatever's in the front line that's being buffed by it. But at the same time, it's not doing a whole lot.
Right. It's not doing enough. Because, well, I mean, you say they have to handle
no,
the
but
front line, but
the most powerful combo with it at the moment is turn 1 109th into turn 2 35T.
Yes. To have a 3-2 on the front line.
Mm-hmm. And then you can play another one turn 3 along with like a 10th engineer and just get a whole bunch of damage into face real quickly.
10th? It's like I know the cards, I just don't always know them by name. Oh,
yeah,
the 10th, yeah.
The adjacent +2.
Right. It's funny because it's an American card though, and the Americans need that +1, that health, because otherwise the Shermans, like the deck, I can see what they were designing it around. It fit into the whole +1/+1 to your other units mechanic that they have going for the Americans in general.
Yeah, if you look at 5th Infantry Regiment, it looks almost perfect. Because it's a 2/3 that gets +1/+1 when it goes into the front line. That would be a 3/4. With 1 9th, it would be a 4/4.
Yeah. It was great. It was very strong. It was a 4/5 when it went to the front line with the engine, which is very strong, which helped it hold the front line, because the whole point of that deck is to hold the front line and basically use the front line as kind of, it's as the combo for the deck is what I meant to say. So you're using the artillery that buffs if you have the front line. You're using it's also the deck that they wanted. Well, it's one of the decks that they wanted Overwhelming Force to be a part of, which I do actually have it in that deck. You'd be surprised how often. Again, we also had another discussion about Overwhelming Force.
Why even play Overwhelming Force when Patrol exists?
Because Patrol costs 2, and because it's armored, if you get, you're already having to use combo cards like the where is it? You're already having to use expensive combo cards like We Can Do It to put some health on your units, and God forbid supply the front line, although it never works because it's too expensive. Again, it's like, it looks like a great, like it should be working with your front a deck
that's just a
front line, but it's too expensive.
That's just an overcosted, bad, worse effect version of the Nurse Cadet Corps. Or Cadet Nurse Corps.
Yeah, essentially. It costs one more and it only works for the front line. But honestly, if it was working, if the deck was working as intended, the frontline deck was working as intended, then you wouldn't need Nurse Cadet Corps because you had 4 of these, and you were able to hold the front line anyway because it repairs them and buffs them. It gives the extra health that they need, not just a +1/+1. Because otherwise, it doesn't make sense because the Sherman costs 4, and there's so many other tanks in the game that cost 4 that have better stats. The Sherman, the Sherman is one thing that is in that deck, and it requires you to have the front line to get that draw.
The thing is, though, with the Sherman, I don't look at it as a 4/4 tank with an ability. It's a convoy with a 1k 4/4 tank attached to it.
No. Convoy you can just play. Sherman you have to have conditions. You have to have the front line, which is not always guaranteed because people see what you're doing, and so they know just don't let them have the front line, and the entire deck just falls apart. So
I wouldn't say entire deck. If you ought to have other options for draw if you're using a deck like this. Mobilization,
I
we
do.
can do
I
it.
have the whole Patton
In my
and
frontline deck, I even have
Industrial Might
33rd
there.
Recon.
Sorry?
In my frontline deck, I even have 33rd Recon. Because it uses
From the Japanese?
Japanese ally for the Emperor, just because the reason US aggro is so slow is because of the operation costs. And that's the reason it can't get the front line. So if you use a card like For the Emperor to decrease your operation cost, you get huge burst damage and speed at the same time.
Oh, wait, no. Yeah, but because I see what you're getting at there. The problem is you already have such a low health on your units that you're probably just trading. So now this gives you the ability to actually trade if, say, they have higher health than you have attack, but you're still just trading. So, and it doesn't give you more. That's one of the problems I do run into with the deck is that it doesn't. The draw is hard to get. Like it's almost like you're playing it like it's mid range, like you're supposed to be trading well with it, but they don't have the health. A lot of them don't have the health to trade like that. So that's what the whole industrial might thing is supposed to be about. That they're supposed to be cheap. I think it's supposed to be played with.
I think the issue is not the draw; it's the low attack values combined with not being able. A lot of the cards are do nothing cards. You play them and they do nothing. They're just there.
Well, that's mid range.
So,
right?
I don't think draw is the problem there. I think if you play Patton in this sort of deck, you're going to be strangled by the operation cost of all your units, because you're going to have a bunch of 0k Greyhounds, a bunch of 0k 109th and 10th Engineers, and all that garbage, and then you're going to play them, and you're going to have 2 credits left over to move one of the Greyhounds and attack with it.
Yeah.
So if you play a For the Emperor instead, you get to move all of them, and they all get that attack buff. That's the thought process on it, anyway. And at that point, you don't need the draw, because you're going to have the Shermans coming in, and you have 4 Greyhounds in the front line.
Well, you also have the retreat mechanic. I think that's why they put the retreat mechanic with it. So you have the 99th and you have the half track, so that even though it's somewhat slow for a deck that wants to quickly hold the front line, you're basically hopefully returning stuff to his hand, so that he's struggling.
Honestly, you don't really need to have a fast deck for what is that card? The 99th? Yeah, for the 99th to work. I use that in my Slow Heinz deck for an alternative to Hummel.
Well,
because you get the front line turn 3 or turn 4 with either 35T or a Panzer 3G or something, and then you get to bounce for 2K on turn 5 or 4, and then you get an Admiral Hipper, and then you get a Hummel, and then it's just bounce all of your guards before you can play anything, and just hit face with the 0 operation cost of land with a free end.
Well, that's the thing. If you're solely using the card for the bounce, then yeah, I can see 99th being better. But the Hummel is supposed to be a bounce plus you keep a 2-4 artillery on the field. So
honestly, I don't see it that way. I see the Hummel as a better condition than the 99th, on top of being a credit cheaper than Panzer IV F2. If the Hummel didn't exist, I would be using Panzer IV F2s. But you're solely
considering it for the bounce, not the unit that comes with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which makes it just a very expensive bounce.
I mean, it can bounce anything, though.
Yeah, but I'd rather just have a... At that point, I'd rather just have the Panzer IVs. Because there is no condition with that bounce.
You'd be surprised how many times you need to bounce something on turn 5 rather than turn 6.
Okay.
It's not really something you can explain with a shadow of a doubt. This is the better way to go, but you feel it from playing the deck.
Well, Oh, we were also discussing just infantry in general from them being slow. So you have... It's interesting that you have some infantry that seem to be designed... So it's like infantry, they don't come with armor, which is also another thing that I would discuss, that more tanks need to come with armor, and armor needs to not be affected by burn, or ignore it. Burn doesn't need to ignore armor, but that's a different subject. But so you have like 4th Battalion, the 463rd. They're very, very cheap, very early infantry that have decent health for their cost, and that's what allows them some staying power. But then the 506 for an early is it's like it'll trade well because it's a 2 attack. It's essentially
506 is a straight downgrade to 34th.
Is a straight downgrade to these?
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, of course. It is. But I mean, if you're not playing Japanese...
I think that card like 321st is super underrated, as well as those mortar crew, the 463rd right there.
Them?
Because that is essentially 2-3 in stats with blitz that you have to kill in 2 parts.
Oh, these.
And as well as the 463rd, which are 2-3 in stats. You just have to attack with them in order to get the 2 attack.
Yeah.
So in my mind, 463rd is a straight upgrade to 506th as well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Not to mention it has some weird utility with killing smokescreen units, but I doubt it would get the front line to do that. Yeah.
What was I gonna...
get through guards too, hit face.
I had lost my point before. I was meant to say that. So let's go look more mid-range. What am I thinking of? I know. Like this card or this new card.
Dude, I love the 81st Infantry Regiment. That thing is my jam.
They are good, but I mean, honestly, they have low attack. So unless they are doing damage to the HQ, they're just... It's great that they finally implemented an infantry that actually has the health to withstand and be able to,
The thing
Not just
about
get
it is
removed
that
completely from
it's
damage hits,
the
but
thing about it is that it's efficient. The good thing about German infantry is that they're very efficient, which is a very German thing. Um, but you play one of these turn 4, and it's just a big Goliath that if it gets into the front line, it's game over for control. And then you play another one turn 5, and then you play another one turn 6. And because it's a standard card, you're more likely to get them than not.
all right. So my experience,
I
because
think that's the strongest part about
I have
it
a
being a
German
standard
infantry
card.
deck, and my experience has been that they just get controlled. So I don't know where you're talking about that control decks get screwed, because that's my whole point about infantry, is that because they take 3 turns to hit anything in the back line, that they gives the opponent time to find their control, or to find their draw, to find their control, and they just struggle to do anything because they're so slow. Not
Okay,
because
I think their slowness in a vacuum is really bad. But if you combine it with the rest of the deck, what are your turn 1 through 3 doing? The control also has to deal with that, and then you don't have to play one turn 5. You know, you can play another 4K card. What I like to do a lot is to shorten that sort of time span between when a unit can, when an infantry can attack or not. Volksgrenadier and Encirclement.
yes. Well, that is a good combo. Yeah.
Because it adds a huge block of stats to the front line, as well as giving you a turn sooner attack. The problem, though, is that Encirclement is now 3K, so you can't pull that off on turn 4 anymore.
Well, you
Because you used
can
to be able
if you play
to.
the Volks
You
on
used to
turn
be able
3.
to move up. You used to be able to play the Volks turn 3, and then turn 4, you move it up, play the Encirclement, and then attack with the second Volks. Now you can only just add a second Volks, but you can't attack with it because of the operation cost.
Right. So is it not as good of a combo? So I mean, the problem with this deck is that German infantry for turn 2, there's not. I was looking for more like staying power, like with the health. You know, they actually can have the fucking staying power to do something. And honestly, the Germans just don't have any infantry that have any staying power until turn 3 and 4.
The thing with German infantry is you don't control the board with infantry for the first couple turns.
No.
You have to have some sort of control element, removal, anything. I use 35 Ts, whirlwinds, joint operations, even sudden strikes, just to be able to clear the way for the infantry. And in another deck, which doesn't utilize a lot of infantry, it's more combined arms.
This card.
I use Pack 36, which is a super underrated card. Pack 36.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It just annihilates honeys, and it's just a menace to control.
I don't know. They do get removed quite
I
easily.
have
Don't they?
disintegrated so many. Yeah, but it's 1K. Who cares?
Okay. So we're talking when that brings up another issue, that we're talking about cost efficiency, where there's another underlying cost efficiency that is trading the number of cards that it takes to counter you. So for one card to counter a 1K, that is pretty even on both sides. But
yeah, if that is countered by a bloody sickle, you're still getting value if you're playing the bloody sickle because it cycles.
No, you're not, because he is paying he is paying 1K to remove your unit and costing you a card. But he isn't
that's what I'm
being
saying.
cost a card himself. Just one credit.
Yeah, he gains a card over you.
Yes, which is incredibly useful. Card advantage is massive in this game.
For sure.
Which is why
that's
every time I come across Bloody Sickle, I cry about how freaking broken it is, because I get to just pay a credit to do 1 damage to anything except the HQ. I don't even lose a card. That's my main problem with Control, is that they don't seem to pay for playing Control by having less of a hand, because it's so incredibly efficient. It's just 1 for 1. And so they take away your control of the board and don't lose hand control in the process.
Yeah, control decks for ages have been trying to find the draw engine to fuel the control to get card advantage, which is the whole point of control.
Right, exactly.
And it used to be Crusader because it had smokescreen,
right,
and you would only play brick control. For other units, you would play still brick cards for like Atlantic Convoy, even.
Right.
To get Jasco and whatnot. That's still a British order, draws you more cards.
Right. Draws you a card, plays 1. It's a very underrated card.
Oh yeah. Atlantic Convoy is really good.
No, that's not.
But Pack 36 against aggro Jagro specifically is really nice, because the 1 damage to tanks really hampers a turn 2 35T.
Yes.
Because then they have to choose, do they let an artillery live, or do they sacrifice either their 15th Cavalry or their 35T?
Right. I agree.
Which is a very passive fuck you to Jagro.
Again, this implies A, that you got one of your Pack 36s in your opening hand, and B, that he's playing Rush. And that was my point.
You can still, then in Control, it fucks with honeys. You don't understand how many decks use tanks. It's just a superior.
Of course, because tanks are just superior to infantry in almost every way in this game, because they don't have that much. Their stats are relatively the same for the cost. Usually they have higher attack, and they can both move and attack in the same turn. So it's like, oh, they have higher operation cost. Who cares? They can actually do things. They don't require 3 turns to do whatever they want.
Yeah. And even the slower tanks, like a lot of the German Panzer IIIs, let me look.
I'm bringing it
Panzer IIIF, Stug 4, Panzer IIIG, Panzer IIIL, Panzer IIIE, Panzer IIIJ, Panther G, Panther A, all of that, a shit ton of the expensive German tanks. The ones with Blitz especially.
Right, like the J.
Like the J. That card, super underrated.
Yes, for its cost. Yeah, great stats for its cost, and it has a keyword. Absolutely.
Now, if you look at that card, and then you go to the German infantry and look at the one that gets guard when it's in the front line.
This one.
Yeah, same stats, same cost, -1 operation cost, but it's not a tank and it doesn't have blitz.
Exactly.
Why?
It's because apparently it's
the epitome of unbalance right there.
Being able to gain a key word in their mind is equal to. I guess in their mind,
why does Germany need the guard in the front line? Why not just give Germany a really good guard? Like, this is, even if it had guard permanently, it's still a shitty Osaka regiment.
Yeah, speaking of,
for 1k more, you get +2 HP, I think.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, Jesus Christ, this card is just ridiculous for its stats. It's ridiculous. It's a 5 cost, and I mean, if you even these stats out, it's like a 5/6. So essentially, you're getting like 1 extra stats in the health for the 5 cost. It's a guard. You get a one of the best keywords in the game. And it only
so
has
if you look at Osaka right there, the guard is 1k with the value of a Lancashire Highlanders.
Yes, great way to look at it. That the 1k to pay for guard, but I think because it's a guard, it should have 2 operation costs. Like it's not supposed to be an
Yeah, I don't
offensive
know
unit.
why Osaka Regiment has one operation cost. The Japanese 61st, the 4-4, which draws a card on death.
This one? Yes.
Yeah. That card, it's an amazing card, but I think
Yes.
it's pretty balanced.
Yes, it's very balanced. I absolutely agree. Even stats.
It trades really well, it guards, and it gives you card advantage, really.
Yeah, it's a great card. So it's an actually balanced card because, like you said, even stats, guard, so it has 2 operation cost, and it have -1 rarity, so you only get 3 of them to have a destruction effect that means that keeps you from having.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautifully balanced card, absolutely perfectly balanced card. This is a great example of things done correctly. This is a great example of things not done correctly.
What do you think should be changed about Akita?
It should only do 1 damage.
On death?
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you think about it, it's already getting good stats. It has Blitz, it has a keyword, and I guess you could say...
I think it's 2k for the destruction effect. Because otherwise it's a 15th Cavalry that just has an operation cost. You know?
Yeah, but the destruction effect is to a random. It's not the Mitos. It's not specifically to the HQ, which is not nearly as bad as I'm just going to do 2 damage to anything and ignore armor. So I mean, honestly, if that destruction effect didn't ignore armor, it wouldn't be as bad. If armor would have more say in the game, their mid-range would potentially be better. They could give... I swear to God, they just need to give some certain infantry more health so that they're actually survive. The ones that are like mid-range based need to have like 1 or 2 extra health, and then certain tanks need to have 1 armor, because it's like that's the whole fucking point of tanks was armor. So there are certain tanks that are a little weak. Like I think the Sherman. Well, I don't know. It is definitely a difficult subject.
I think Hotchkiss should have heavy armor 1.
Hotchkiss. Yes, yeah, the light tank that had enormous amounts of heavy armor for its time.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And why does the Semavente have heavy armor? It just for realism.
I know.
Why does the Semavente have heavy armor? For realism, why does the Semavente have heavy armor? Like, I love the Semavente, but why does it have heavy armor?
Well, because the Italians have to be good, right? They're not the base.
They have to have something worth playing.
Yeah.
I think I've tried to fit Semavente in so many decks, and they never work. Just because playing Italy is shooting yourself in the foot. Why would you play anything Italy has when you're stopping yourself from using a massive card pool of any of the other nations?
That's a great thing to talk about, is Italy just in general, because it's like, besides Alpini regiments and the whole Alpine mechanic, which I understand now why they didn't give Alpine to the Americans, because it's like, well, they already have a bunch of +1/+1 mechanics for the Americans by themselves, so if you gave them Alpine, that would just be ridiculous. Although, then you put Mare Nostrum.
I did not put Mare Nostrum into the game.
I know, there's people love to give you credit for that.
What do you think about the G50?
G50?
I think the G50 was it's right there.
Oh.
Yeah. I think that was an amazing card before Mare Nostrum came out.
Yes, it was. It absolutely was.
But now you can give the ability to anything, so what's the point? Just play Macchies.
Because they stack.
It stacks, but who cares?
Because you attack and you get... So I was playing a game, and
Would you rather have a 3/4 plane with 2 operation cost on turn 3? Would you rather use your entire turn for that, or would you rather play a Maki and get a 3/5 with 1 operation cost?
Oh no, I agree.
It's essentially the same thing. Heals for 3 less maybe, but it's way cheaper and way more efficient. You can hit face with it. It's beautiful.
Because with this card, you can get potentially stupid amounts of health very, very quickly.
I mean, you can also get potentially stupid amounts of health very, very quickly with the pack 40. That's one of my favorite combos. Mare Nostrum on a pack 40.
On the German?
Because the text triple damage to tanks.
Oh, yeah, but that...
So if you play double Mare Nostrum on a pack 40, and then buff its attack just slightly, maybe a Panzer 2C.
Yeah.
That will... It just stacks and stacks and stacks, and you get like 20 HP from each shot.
Oh, if you have more than one?
No, if you... So Mare Nostrum stacks. If you play 2 Mare Nostrums on a pack 40, it's already a 4/4.
40, sorry, Jesus, my bad. Not for pack 38, my bad. Although, a pack 38 would also work as well.
Well, no, because the text on it is way worse, and it starts with less attack anyway. So you would, if you played double Mare Nostrum on a pack 38, it would only be a plus. What would it be? 3 plus 3. So it would be 12. 12 HP from each pack 38 shot. Or it would be like plus 30 almost per pack 40 shot.
Oh, they're both triple. Sorry, I thought this one was double and this one was triple. I misread. Yeah, you're correct about the attack, but this one is easier to remove.
Oh, pack 38 deals triple to tanks?
Yeah.
I thought it only did double.
No, it's triple.
Huh.
That's why I was like, you know, it survives a little bit more with that extra health and it comes out earlier.
That's strange. Why am I not using the pack 38?
Well, I'll be right back.
No, but why does the Flak 88 only have double damage to tanks then?
Because it already does a tremendous amount for artillery, and it does it also to air. But yeah, I mean, what the whole concept of
no, it's funny. It's funny. Germany has the best anti-tank guns, while also having the best tanks.
Yeah. Well, Russians.
What, the 45 millimeter?
No, I mean in terms of tanks. Like Russian tanks are nothing to sneeze at.
What Russian tanks are you talking about? Like the KV-1?
Yeah, they got a lot of heavy stuff. You get up to the higher, like four costs and above.
I'd say the only good Russian tanks, relatively speaking, the KV-1 1941, the Joseph Stalin, the T-34-85 on the right deck, the Pain Train, but it's a train, not a tank.
Right, it's meant for token decks anyway.
And
or
that's it.
Hold the front line.
It's meant for value decks.
Well, it's meant for tokens too.
You can use it in tokens. I find it's way too expensive to be using for tokens. But
well, the whole point of tokens is to hold the front line and spam, in my opinion. And then
I haven't played tokens in a while, but I remember in my token deck I used it for. Is it still in here? Yeah, it is. I would use it just as a factory for tokens to put in the front line with 109th. And I remember it saved me with its guards in the Spooz's Nations Cup against Darkness because he had a comet and I had 3 health.
Oh yeah.
But
But I mean, I mean, these tanks aren't bad. Like a T-3485 is a good tank. 5.5 for 5 that has 1 armor, and if you use an order on it, you don't lose a card at least. So it's like, oh, they killed me with sickle.
Oh yeah, the T-3485 is a fantastic value card for mid-range.
Yes, absolutely.
Like all Soviet, any mid-range deck you have with Soviet ally or Soviet main should be using T-3485. Not value specifically, but mid-range.
Yeah.
Because Soviet value is a lot different than Soviet mid-range.
Right. But no.
But if you combine that with like a we can do it or any type of buff, you can just pump those suckers out. You get massive value from the heavy armor and the draw a card when it gets targeted by an order. It's just very good.
139s really aren't terrible. Heavy armor.
No, but why would you use that over the paint train? More of them, I guess, but
because you can actually attack with it.
Why would you attack with it? You're playing it for the guard, no?
I mean, you're playing for the stats too. I mean, it's a heavy tank. It's not meant to be. It's just hard to break through. It's hard to get through, which I think this is actually right here. This is basically, in my opinion, the epitome of what a tank should look like. Where heavy armor, hard to get through, not necessarily the best attack, not necessarily guard, but in essence, and maybe like.
Okay, to me though, I'm comparing this to stuff like Volksgrenadier. So what you're paying for is 3K and 1 operation cost. So 4K plus the stats of a 3/6 Volksgrenadier for heavy armor, guard, and +1 attack.
That can also move and attack at the same time instead of having to wait.
And being a tank unit.
And being a tank.
Which is like it's okay, but it's not fantastic. I would say, if it was like a 4/7, I'd be fucking fantastic. But that's with the armor train has 7
they did increase
7
the health
defense.
in KV too. So I mean, maybe this one could use 1 extra health.
Yeah, I think it's odd that the KV1 has more health than the KV2.
Yeah. Well, no, they're the same chassis. And so yeah, it is a little odd, but it's balancing factors, I guess.
Yeah, I think you could. I think there was actually a nerf to the KV2 for giving it 5 health.
You know, the fact that they have
just
so little
the
health on this and it costs so much, I feel like they're putting like in their minds, heavy armor is this good keyword that that substitutes for health when it doesn't. It just makes.
Well, if you want a good example of heavy armor, you can look at a card which doesn't even have heavy armor, the Aerocobra. The Aerocobra can be an absolute menace. But it's because it's cheap.
It's also new stuff that's a little like that's good stats for being a fight, something that can attack from the back line. Literally, you're paying for one stats wise. You're paying for 1 attack. Or you're trading 1 attack strength to have basically 2 armor against ground units, which is ridiculously good.
I think the LA5. I think the LA5 is one of the cards that needs the most help buff-wise, because it could be a very good card for Soviet Air, but it's just not. It just sucks.
Yeah, it's okay,
it's
but it really isn't though. Stats-wise, it shouldn't be bad.
No, stats-wise, it's literally it's a direct downgrade to so many different things. If you look at the Yak 3, it has the Yak 3 has a keyword over it and can cost 1 less if there's a French unit.
Oh, right, yeah, because there's so many French units being played with the Soviets.
Still, it has a keyword over it.
Yeah, it does have a keyword, so you're trading
with no cost. And then if you look at the HE, the Heinkel, whatever the fuck,
the
German one.
Yeah, the Heinkel.
HE219 that also is a direct upgrade. It has an ability and 5 defense rather than 4 for the same cost.
Agreed. I honestly, I wish that they would change the special ability back, because I wanted to use it in a self-hurt HQ deck, but now I can't, because it has to be an enemy ground unit. Or
But
just buy it.
and then you look at the MEBF 110, and it's even sadder because it's a conditional LA5.
Yeah, but I've gotten these things to be pretty big.
They can be pretty big, but they usually aren't.
Well, I mean,
Usually
that
you're
begs
paying.
the question then, are which in your opinion are easier to play, easier to use, a mid-range deck or a combo deck?
What do you mean?
So, because this is supposed to be using a combo deck, you're using this with a deck that holds the front line, and then this buffs itself via you holding the front line. So it could be used in just simple range.
I think in those types of decks, you really just clog up your support line so badly. Because best case scenario, you're having a 109th, you're having a Nashib, you're having a 22 for the draw, you're having a 110 for the buffing ability. But then you have nothing to hold the front line with unless you move the BF 110 into the front line, and then you're just struggling against your own supply.
Yeah.
And like best case scenario, everything is going bad.
So how would you change the 110? I mean, honestly though,
make it 3K.
Make it 3.
Yeah.
It'd be pretty damn strong though, because it would be a 3K, and then you place
I mean, look
it,
at the Wildcat though.
They're expecting you to place it, and then it instantly gets buffed the moment you end your turn. Because
no, look at the Wildcat though. It's or a G55. Look at it. The BF 110 versus a G55.
No, I agree. This is
point taken.
I mean, yeah, right. I agree, but it also, I mean, that's just power creep right there, because this came out after the F110. Like, let's just have a.
I think it's really funny that Italy can just get away with having amazingly broken cards, but still being the worst nation.
I think that goes towards my opinion that the pace of the game now is just so ridiculously fast, coupled with the fact that control is just so efficient. It's like you're correct. How broken potentially is this card, the stats wise that you get for its cost? But it's not played. Why is it not played? Because you've lost. Either A, you've lost by the time this gets out, B, you haven't met its condition, or C, you're playing against a control deck that just says fuck you and you're just not allowed to play the game.
Yeah, a lot of Italian decks are just figuring out a way to get around the dumb conditions that the cards have so that they can be broken and overpowered.
Yeah, so it's
that in itself, like Reckless Assault and Mare Nostrum. Or
oh, that's pretty good.
Mare Nostrum and Maki. Mare Nostrum and Maki to offset the destruction if your HQ is lower.
Is hold on, Mare Nostrum, not Mare Nostrum. What was the order? The Russian order, and I'm sorry, we're all over the place. We do this. Is that one unit? Your unit? So no, it's all of them.
Yeah, it's a 2K alliance with a god-awful defect.
God-awful debuff, yeah. Not debuff, but, ugh.
But if you play a bunch of G50s, and then play Reckless Assault on them, that turns them all into 4/5s, and the debuff of having of dealing damage to yourself just isn't applied because you're also healing that damage at the same time.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was saying, is that I went up against a guy who got this off on turn 2. Turn 3 played a Mare Nostrum on it, and so it had double the effect. So now it was a 3/4 that attacked my HQ and gave 6 to him. And then the next turn he put another one on it, so now it's a 4/6 that's giving him 8. So that's 6, 8, 14 health. So now he's at 44.
Oh, I have a
No, 34.
written
Sorry,
Italian.
34. And then I attacked him, and unfortunately I had to use 2 units to kill it off, and he was up to like 44 health on like turn 5 or 6. I was like, and now he basically just got all the time in the world.
So I was saying, I have a British Italian Commonwealth deck, which doesn't even use the G50s. That's how good Mare Nostrum is. And you can get to 40 HP, 30 HP easily on turn 6 with Mare Nostrum.
You still have to wait for turn 12 to get to if you get your.
Still, if you can get to 40 HP by turn 6, you can get to 50 HP by turn 12.
Well, that's true. And they just can't kill you. Again,
I've had so many games against like discard decks. I've had so many games with this deck against like discard, and it just gets to a point where I have almost near 80 health. It's like turn 20, and they've discarded me the whole game. We're both running on fumes, and then they just look at my health and surrender. And there's no other reason for it. They just cannot be bothered to play for that long. They could have won 3 games in the time it would take to beat me.
And it's funny because you can see, just looking at these planes, you can see what they were thinking with the Fiat 55, is that, oh, you'd rush with these planes and gain a little bit of health with these planes, and you'd either drop one or two of these and just keep your health advantage, and then you drop these and finish them off.
Oh yeah, I have a Japtalian aggro deck, which is basically what I think they were thinking decks with the Italian planes were going to be like. It used to have CR42, but it was just too inefficient and luck based on whether you went first or not.
Right. Yeah, going first is such an incredible advantage.
Honestly, it's not that bad though. If you're playing, I've tuned this deck really well so that it can survive past turn 2 against other aggro decks. It really just loses instantly to Beefwagon, and that's it. But if it can kill your turn 1 15th Cavalry and then play a turn 2 Maki, then it's fine because it can hit face and outface race you with the bigger unit.
Right. Let's think of some problem cards, like, in general, what are some cards in your opinion that need to be changed? Then I'll give like a couple of mine.
Admiral Yamamoto.
The order?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree actually. That's the last man, Yamamoto.
It's a 1K.
This one?
No, that's Yamato.
Admiral Yamamoto. Sorry, excuse me. The 1K.
1K.
Yeah. Now I know which one you're talking about. Really? Yeah.
It's bad.
Yeah, giving Blitz. Blitz is just such a good. It's such a good keyword.
I think instead of giving +1 attack, it should reduce operation cost of your planes by -1.
Wouldn't that make it just
because that's the problem. even better that it is. It's awful. You can use it to play one plane and hit face with it. Like you get 5 damage from a 0. But why wouldn't you just play Hien?
I'm sure you would be playing Hiens in this. In the deck this goes in. It's just like it gives Blitz to everything else
There's
as well.
no point. It already has Blitz.
Well, because you're playing.
Why would you use its anti-synergy?
Because you also have Burst of
You want
Fire.
to use it to give Blitz to things that you don't have.
Because you also have Burst of Fire and you also have For the Emperor.
Yeah. But that's, what, a 4-card combo now?
No,
Admiral Yamamoto, Burst of Fire, Honorable, or For the Emperor. I'm using a deck with that combo in mind, and the amount of times I pull off that combo is next to nothing. I use Yamamoto turn 5 to get 1 hit in with a Maki that I have in hand, so that my other Makis don't die. That's what Yamamoto is for. And I'm so close to removing it from the deck, but I love him. I want him to be good so badly, but he isn't. That's my thing with the Semovente too.
Yeah, if you could
I want him to be good so badly, but he doesn't.
If it was back to the days where you could have other elites and you could use Patton to at least.
Oh, dude, Patton is just a straight upgrade to Admiral Yamamoto. It affects all units, and it decreases their cost. What would you rather have? Only air units having Blitz, but they get plus 1 attack, or fucking your units in hand decrease by 1k, and all of your units get Blitz.
Again, I think
Patton is just a straight better card than Yamamoto.
I think this goes. Oops, sorry. I think this goes back to this was created. This is base set, so this goes back to the when the game was slower. So you mid-range decks.
Well, Patton is a base set card as well.
What? Which one?
Patton is a base set card.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I still never see Patton played. I do agree that it's potentially, but it's also limited to the Americans now, so it's irrelevant as to whether it's a better card or not, because it depends on what deck it's in.
Yeah.
So it's kind of irrelevant. But
why give Japan a straight worse version of Patton?
Because it's an old set. And
well, change it, update it, make it better.
Oh, but then we wouldn't be able to sell.
It can still only affect air units, but make them so that you can actually use more than 1 air units. Make it so that you don't have to have them already deployed.
The fucking combo of Burst of Fire with for the Emperor and like fucking Goshikin or something. Like the deck that gets one of these off with that combo, like how much does that cost?
Now, why would you use that when you could play Shiden into a bolster the ranks?
Well, that's another combo you can use. I mean, why not have all of that in there?
Well, don't know. Too expensive, I guess. If you have multiple combos going off at the same time, you're gonna have pieces of different combos.
And I think that's so. So go back to what
that aren't synergizing together.
So sorry, not for the Emperor, but basically, I mean, you could have for the Emperor in there just as another option. But yeah, no, essentially, Burst of Fire with Bolster is of such an amazing combo. To be able to give Fury to something is crazy.
Yeah, that's why.
That's why
I've seen so many decks abusing the Panzer Grenadiers.
Right.
And it's funny because I've wanted a card that just straight up gave Pincer to something for so long, and it's still not there yet. It's only temporary Fury, as long as the cards are alive. But we're getting to that power creep point.
Fury has the same issue with Blitz. It has the same issue with giving Blitz to something.
The card that gives permanent Fury is going to have to be expensive and or increase operation costs or something. It cannot just be straight give Fury to a unit.
Yeah. I actually didn't think didn't Spoos play the Tiger? What was it, like Reichsbank Tiger, Panzer Grenadier to give Fury
Bolster, Panzer,
bolster, yeah, bolster it, yeah. Like I was like, I saw him playing that. I was like, no, that was my deck. I thought of that first. That was the first thing I thought about when I saw this card. Damn it! Now he gets the credit.
What do you think of a card like Naval Supply Run?
Hold on. Okay, so I have this in my Zero-Op Japanese Rush deck, and I think it's.
I think that's the wrong deck to put it in.
I don't think so, because that's why
I
they
think
added
it's
the
a
whole...
very good card for decks with high HP.
Agreed, yeah, because it gives the extra attack. But I mean, you got to remember that in a Zero-Op Rush deck, you're not paying to attack with them. So giving them that high attack just rushes the game along, and you don't. The mistake I think I keep making is that I'm waiting to have like too many units on the field before I use this. It also
Yeah, you can't greed with it.
Yeah, you can't get greedy, and that's what I keep making the mistake of doing.
I think the Naval Supply Run combos really well with the Type 94 TK, I think. Is that what it is? The Type 94? Yeah, Type 94 TK. That gives surprise attack?
Yeah, this one?
Yeah, I think it's one of the most underrated cards in the game. It's 1k, it's a tank, it operates for 0, it gives a card which has utility on it. It's utility and removal at the same time. It's not removal, it's a Japanese unit.
It's just control for a turn.
Well, 2 surprise attacks.
Well, that's 2 removal. Surprise attacks are, yeah. I mean, if you're playing a pin deck, then yeah.
It's utility and potentially removal if you play 2 of them. And it's a Japanese unit, so it combos with Rising Sun, combos with, what is it, Fur Prosperity?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a surprisingly good card. It's just a lot better than people give it credit for. And Naval Supply Run, especially because it adds a card to your hand, which has a chance of being discarded rather than any other card in your hand. With Naval Supply Run.
In the because of Lightning Conquest, and because now, God, I really wish that if they're ever watching this, please look at this card to make sure that it's working correctly, because the fact that it only says friendly infantry units are immune to damage and can both move and attack in the same turn. It says nothing about having to be played first, about them having to be on the board, where on the board they are. It just says they have this ability for the turn. And I swear to God, it does not work unless you have just placed them on the back line. Like, it'll give them immunity, but they won't be able to both move and attack, like, if they're still in your hand, which, like, it's like, I play this, then I play the infantry, which doesn't make sense, because it just says this turn, the units just have this ability.
Yeah, it should say friendly infantry on the battlefield, then.
But, okay, well, that's my point, is to ask the devs which is correct.
Fix the wording
on the battlefield or the way I'm thinking.
Either fix the wording or fix the ability.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's very confusing, and I still am not quite sure if this is bugged or
Also,
not.
I think it's really funny that a bunch of Jaggro decks just realized Lightning Conquest existed and was like, holy shit!
It's like, this card's been in the game. It's a great card. It's like, my god.
Yeah. And nobody used it for years, and then Jaggro decks all of a sudden saw it and were like,
wait, this fucking exists?
Wait, this exists? I can just do that?
And also,
I can just remove everything and give my 15th Cavalry and turn my 15th Cavalry into tanks?
Into tanks, yeah. You really? That don't die? This is
I can turn all of my infantry. Outmaneuver is meh.
You would think it's meh, but I mean, I've just been misusing it. I think I've been trying to use it to like in an instance where I need to trade, like with artillery. Like, yeah, it works there, but it's also a great card that's like I need to hold the front line. Like he has an entire back line. I only have one unit. I need to hold the front line. 2K to just he
Yeah,
is not
it's very
allowed to
good
take the front line.
utility.
What?
It's very good utility.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's finding a deck that needs that utility is the issue.
Well, Japanese zero
Because
cost buffing.
why would you play that card on a unit when instead you could just move more units into the front line, you know?
Because of
Or stop relying on a single card in order to win,
no, that's
and just
not. I'm not relying on a
diversifying your
single
deck, you know?
card. Okay, so the main problems I keep coming across with this deck, that's supposed to be based on zero operation cost and buffing and whatnot, is that a lot of shit just has no health, and so it just dies to any area of effect card.
Yeah, you need some cup of teas in there.
Yeah. For Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, if Japan had a cup of tea. Yeah. I mean, I tried. I tried to look for any card that was like an area effect buff that wasn't American, that maybe was Japanese. And the only thing I could find was Supply Run and
I mean, there's For Prosperity, Ancient
Prosperity.
Empire. Although, why would you ever use Ancient Empire?
Which one? That's an order, right?
Yeah. Ancient
yeah.
Empire is one of those cards that has always been bad. There was never a period in the game where Ancient Empire was good.
Well, I mean, it's funny though. I swear to God, they try to give a clue in the artwork as to where they thought that it should be. So I like this is supposed to be used like to help buff your mid-range planes or something, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But and then give 4 HQ to the 4 defense to the HQ because you're using planes, so you're not using guards, supposedly. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. Also, I think it's really funny that they gave it an amazing buff to home defense, and it's still really shit. And it's used just as little as it was used before.
I just think that nobody plays.
No, why would you ever play Japanese mid-range?
Because nobody tries it. It might be fun just to try it out. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's... You know what? Let's do it right now. I'm going to make some Japanese mid-range. All the Japanese mid-range that I've seen has all been discard.
So... Cost 10 or less, add 3. Okay, so basically it's like a... yeah, you're right. I can see why they want it to cost a lot and why it's an elite, because it gives you 2 units. But still, yeah. That whole condition of 10 or less is... Cost 4, yeah. Oh, cost 4. Right, okay, sorry. Yeah, no. God, I'm such an idiot. Read the card. What does the card say? So, it's basically, it's utility in that if you're going up against a rush deck, it only costs 4 because he's gotten you down pretty low.
If you're fucked, you're kind of less fucked.
Yeah, basically.
But burn exists, so you'll be fucked either way.
Right, exactly. Which is why I still think HQ burn is still ridiculous right now. It's just too efficient in where it's used. But so let's say mid-range. What are we talking? So when we say mid-range, they're talking about a Type 3 Chinu with that bomber. So I mean, are we building a deck around these, the Aichis?
I don't know, man.
I mean,
I'm honestly thinking maybe in the Navy with Type 88 AA gun, just try to give some big buffs to artillery and just high value units. Because that's what mid-range is. Maybe pirate cannon.
Let's see, the mid-range is ambush. Oh no, not ambush. Sorry. Those are actually Not terrible for a 3 cost card.
What is?
The 144th.
Hold on, let me look. Oh yeah, you. I mean, the ability is not terrible. I know Jaking is a big fan of the card just because of its ability.
I can see that too, yeah.
But
Let's see. For mid-range, like that's a great early mid-range card. Tough to get past if you don't have the removal. The Toyama. Toyama.
Toyama is not bad. But the problem is it's very easy to remove, it's so weak to removal.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you have the removal, it's not a problem. But if you don't, then it's a little tough to get past. That's great mid-range right there, the guard we talked about. Sendai's are just good. I guess they're more control, but Takasagi Regiment is still just a good guard. The Osakas, we said, are pretty overpowered, and the Utsunomiya Regiment is great for mid-range if you think about it, because it's a 4/6 infantry that, like, the stats are even. It's not guard, so it's got only one operation cost. It's good stats. It's a good all-around statted card. And then if they try to use removal, it still does 2 damage. Like, oh, you know a card that's underrated that I have in my HQ burn deck?
Huh.
Is this thing. This thing is
No.
way underrated in my opinion.
Oh yeah, Hago?
Oh, yeah.
I think Hago recently got a buff to where it did the damage even if it was killed by the order, which was its big problem.
I did notice that
Because,
it didn't do that. No,
because it used to not deal the damage if it was killed by an order.
Yeah, I did notice that, and I was like, that's fucked up, weird, because you're playing the order, then it dies, like order of operations, right? When an order is given, so yeah. Yeah, like this, because I mean, if you think about it, all they have to do is play 2 orders while this thing is alive, and it pays for itself.
Yeah, definitely, easily.
It's God, I love way underrated card.
What do you think of the pirate cannon?
The pirate. It is. It's a very good artillery, in my opinion, because it already comes with high attack.
The pirate cannon used to be the scourge of the fucking game. Back when it had 2 operation cost, it was like, oh, pirate cannon.
Oh, I can see why. I can absolutely see why. I mean, yeah, it doesn't survive a lot of removal because only 3 health, but I mean, you're supposed to be using, apparently, you're supposed to be using removal against artillery anyway, because apparently that's their only fucking direct counter. So, I mean, if they're using removal in your direct counter, then you're fucked anyway. But otherwise, it's just gonna control the board. Yeah, and it's gonna. This is where I understand Admirable when he was talking about somebody was asking him in draft, or like, where's your draw engine? He's like, my units are my draw engine. Like, good luck getting past these. I mean, he was playing draft, but I can see what he meant though. Like, if you can just use hit your units to control his board, who cares that you don't get to play anything else? Because it's like,
dude, pirate cannon is one of the most OP cards in draft.
Yeah.
If I get pirate cannon, I'm fucking set. And if I get it down turn 3, I'm set.
Well, that's my point. Right, exactly, because artillery is so ridiculous. And I mean,
it doesn't matter if it can hit face, because what are you gonna do? Not hit front? You can't hit my face. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, and
I'm just getting instant value off of it while you're struggling to find anything that can try and overwhelm it, and then I play a second one and you quit the game.
Basically, yeah. It's they gotta do something.
Which is really funny because its little brother, the little mountain gun right there, is complete garbage.
Only because it can't survive like a bloody sickle.
Yeah, if it can't survive a staple card, then it's not good.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter
Again,
how
but
cheap
I
it is. Doesn't matter
personally
how.
think that, see, it's funny, we're talking about all these different changes that need to happen, but minor changes in this, because we're all talking about single digits here in terms of stats, everything is in the single digits, usually low single digits. Minor changes can have sweeping effects. So,
Mhm.
I mean, I certain things that seem like obvious changes, like the Osaka regiment we were talking about, would be okay,
Mhm.
and probably not have the largest sweeping effect, especially since Osaka isn't like the most overused card already. But
Yeah, but like, what about giving that mountain gun 2 HP, but making it a 2/2 rather than a 3/2?
possibly, would it be a special at that
Maybe.
point?
Yeah. I mean, it is a special.
No, I know, but would it still be worthy of being a special?
I would say it would be more worthy of being a special because it wouldn't die instantly as much.
I don't know.
Like
At the
at the
rate,
moment, playing an AA gun is just that Type 88 AA gun, just straight better than the mountain gun. Because
yeah,
artillery being able to survive is way better than artillery being able to potentially deal a lot of damage.
but it's not about it dealing damage. It's about it controlling. See, this is where this is the thing that needs to sink into people's heads, in my opinion, is it's not necessarily just about the massive amount of damage it does. It's about the fact that it trades cards. It's efficient
It's
in
all about card advantage.
yes,
Artillery is by far the best unit type.
for card advantage. For yes, exactly. Which is in my opinion one of the main reasons that the Russian artillery deck right now is so ridiculously overpowered. It's not necessarily because it is because of Firestorm, but it's also because of the draw machine. Like one of its most powerful
The
parts of the
draw
deck is the
engine
draw
is the
machine.
problem of the artillery deck, because that deck existed before. Artillery decks have always existed,
They have always
and they
existed.
were always like that before um, Catalyst. And I don't know what about Catalyst just brought it on, but people realized, hey, if I get this massive draw engine with supply chain and lesser and what's it called, war production, then I can
Yeah.
fuel the massive attack of these artillery.
And even if
I
he
can
wipes
keep
my
pumping
board,
them
I can
out.
just put them all back on there.
Yeah, I'm going to trade efficiently with the artillery, deal a lot of face damage, and then once my artillery die, I'm going to draw a huge amount of cards, and then I'll play more artillery and rinse and repeat.
Basically, yeah.
But I just made a
I still
shitty
think
Japanese
artillery. I think if they
mid-range
made the
deck.
change that artillery was like bombers and they didn't trade their attack when they're attacked, that they would put them properly in their place. Because it doesn't make sense that they get to trade their attack, but bombers don't. Bombers cost more to use and
The
they're
thing,
more expensive in the first place. That's why nobody makes bomber decks. There's not, I mean, not pure like low cost bombers and then buff them decks.
so the way I look at it is that bombers generally, they're a worse unit type than artillery,
Yes,
but they have higher stats.
but it doesn't matter because they come out later.
Like if
You
you
can't
look at
have a
Swordfish
large number of
versus
them easily.
T19. Yeah, I definitely think a lot of the bombers need to have a rarity change, but also have some of their big synergies, like close air support. So for Brit Air in particular, it's become a lot of Hurricane OTK, basically. It's not about the gladiators, it's not about the swordfish, it's about buffing the Hurricane Mark IIA in order to hit face for massive amounts of damage with the Fury.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean it's definitely good. Yeah, Fury is very, very strong. It's all about doing as much as you possibly can on your turn, which is why, again, why infantry is so bad, because you just can do so little with them in one turn.
Mm-hmm. But then you pair the Hurricane with Finest Hour, then that's 5k, 6,
Yeah,
7,
yeah,
8,
yeah,
9.
yeah.
That's 9k for 10 damage.
Oops, sorry. It is.
And then if you play Hurricane into Finest Hour into Bolster the Ranks,
Yeah.
that would still be 9k, but it would be let's see, 5, 6, 7. It would be 14 damage rather than 10 damage. And then you would have a massive 7/7 fighter with Fury to deal with.
Yeah, which he probably wouldn't, because he'd probably, with Bolster, he'd just be using it immediately and he'd just be dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
at that
honestly,
point,
just
turn,
bolstering
at that
it once
point,
to
if you have
5/5,
9,
I mean, he has to respond to it next turn where he's dead.
yeah.
But
and
that goes...
at that point, Brit Air has been whittling your HQ down the whole time. That might even just be lethal.
Possibly, yeah.
If you don't have a guard. I think Comet is so annoying.
Yeah.
I don't use it myself, but the Comet is just it's very annoying. If you have a guard unit, instantly countered. If you don't, you're dead.
Yeah.
I think the power level on Comet needs to be changed.
So what I've been gathering is, I think, and I was about to ask you, what do you think the optimum pace of the game is? Because we've been arguing that this is too slow, this is too fast, and it's like, what is the proper pace of the game? So, because you were talking about, if
I think it should have I think it should have a variety of every pace, which I think it has right now, but it's very control heavy and aggro heavy. It tips really far on either end.
Right, but
and
the
it needs to be centralized.
Is because rush decks are so incredibly efficient and fast, and it's just like you either have the tools in your hand to handle them, or you're fucked. That's it. There's no in between.
Yeah.
And control.
But it's funny as well. It's funny as well because one of my strongest decks at the moment, Slow Hines, is a fast mid-range deck, where it basically doesn't do anything for the first 3 turns, and then hits you with 10 damage turn 4. But it's just about continual pressure that builds every turn and doesn't stop coming because it's all blitz tanks, big heavy blitz.
Yeah, it sounds like a mid-range
Panzer operation deck. Cost decreases and bounce.
So it's like it's a mid-range Panzer.
But I think it's really funny. A law of the deck is if a turn 3 Stug is played, a turn 4 Bolster will come. And that has always been the case with this deck.
Turn 3 Stug. Oh, the
Stug
4? Yeah. That's such a good tank.
If you play a turn 3 Stug, a turn 4 Bolster will come. It's like it's not a law of nature at this point with the deck.
What was I gonna say? Sorry, getting hungry.
And that will beat any control deck. Okay, not any. I've been beaten by a very specific British German discard deck with Root Out.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be tough to deal with. So what do you think of the Jagd Panther?
Jagd Panther?
Yeah.
Icky.
It's
gross.
Icky.
I wouldn't touch that.
It's funny because if you look at it, it should technically be a good card. You basically stats, instead of having extra health, they went extra attack. But technically it's a 4/4.
Oh, you know what's
We'll move one stat around, and we gave it ambush.
If you look at the
for the extra operation cost.
Okay, but if you look at there's a Russian infantry with the same stats, It's a 5/3 ambush infantry, but has 1 operation cost, and when
I
it's
know which
targeted
one.
by
The
an orc
1005th. Yeah.
Yeah, they're equally shit. But one is a tank and one isn't. So that just shows you how it being a tank isn't necessarily going to make or break the card. It can both be just as terrible.
Yeah, especially if the operation cost is because it's like
I think the
for
2
for
operation
this thing
cost
you're
kills
paying
it.
an extra turn, but for the Yod Panther you're paying more credits.
If you play it turn 4, you're paying for it twice. You're paying for it to play it turn 4, and then you're paying for it to move turn 5.
Yeah.
So it's essentially an 8k 5/3 with ambush.
Well, to actually get
And
off
that's how I look at a lot of cards in the Slow Heinz deck. I think Panzer 35T, that's a 4k card. Panzer 3F, that's 7k. Stug 4, that's 9k. Panzer 3L, that's 7k as well. Panzer 3E, that's 8k. Panzer 3J, that's 8k as well.
Right, but okay, so that goes towards my point of why control decks are so much more efficient than mid-range decks is because of the operation cost adding to the overall cost of the card for them to actually be useful. So control decks are instantaneous in order. It happens right now. And but for a unit, it's I have to play it, and then I have to take a whole turn to actually for it to possibly get removed or something to happen to it, bounce back to my hand, whatever. I have to take the risk of something happening to it, and then I have to pay even more credits to do something with it. Which I can kind of appreciate what they were like. It's what makes the game different from other card games is the operation cost. But I don't necessarily disagree or want that mechanic to be taken away. I just feel like there's so much removal and control in the game that's just so incredibly fucking efficient for its cost. And it's like, but it's only 1 card. You know, you only get to use it once. The unit you could potentially trade more than 1 card with, and it's like true, but it's going to cost me a lot more credits to do it. And
would you rather have a higher floor or a higher ceiling?
Yeah.
Do you want a higher potential or a higher baseline? And baseline gives you reliability.
Oh, it depends on how quickly I want the deck to work.
Yeah. But do you want to potentially have a really strong effect, or do you want a reliable, good enough effect? And if you have enough reliable, good enough effects to counter potential really good effects, then you'll come out on top value-wise.
Right. Exactly. Which is why I feel like so much control needs to be looked at in this game.
But I think there's a real
needs to be slowed down just a bit. I understand they want to sell their new cards, but like, Jesus, you don't have a player base to take advantage of.
I think there's a real underuse of operation cost reducing cards. Like, everyone knows Bolster the Ranks. That's the operation cost reducing card.
Or
there's also For the Emperor
enemies.
and Greif. Yeah, just messing with operation cost. But I think Land of the Free is one of the most underrated cards ever since it was reduced to 1k.
It used to cost 2. I think I came in after it was nerfed or buffed then.
Yeah, it used to cost 2. It used to cost 2, and it was, nobody used it.
And then you got Scorched Earth, which like, yeah, early control. Like if he has a rush deck, if he got out like 3 units on turn 2, like this destroys it. Like they're done. They're not gonna do anything.
But if you think of the combo potential of certain cards with reduction in operation cost, specifically tanks, you can see the Panzer 3G. That's a 7k card, and that Panzer 3G is a 7k card in my mind, not a 3k card. But if you add you play a Land of the Free on it, that's now a 4k card.
Yeah.
And a Panzer 3J is now a 5k card.
Okay. You are correct. You
And
are
if you play
absolutely.
bolster on a, if you play a bolster on a Stug 4, that's no longer a 9K card. That's a
Okay, hold on.
that's a 7K card. That's massive.
You are absolutely correct, except for the fact that control is still more efficient, be in the sense of card advantage, because you basically have two cards in one. So instead of paying credits for the unit to do what it needs to do, you've now basically substituted that credit cost for a card cost. So now it's two cards
Now,
in one, and they're going to
you
use
have to
one
think about it
card to
this
get
way,
rid of
though.
two of yours.
You have to think about it this way, though. It's kind of controlling in the same way where you're playing cards and then drawing to get more cards, and that gives you the card value, the card advantage. But if both decks are doing that, see, with have a reliable draw on the deck, in both decks will be sort of even, relying on the board state, really.
Right. No, I see what you're saying. Because maybe there's just too many efficient draw engines with control. Because I've always thought
Mm-hmm.
Crusader could in a control deck is just potentially ridiculous.
Well, when Crusader had Smokescreen, it was ridiculous.
It's still ridiculous because as long as it just doesn't die, I mean, the amount of card advantage you can gain from that is absurd. Because it defeats it literally it by itself eliminates the entire problem that with a control deck, and that is running out of control
Mm-hmm.
by itself.
Yeah.
And I mean, so I see what you're talking about with having.
I mean, the problem though is that it takes up a support line slot, which in a control deck is a big deal because you're already filling up your support line with guards and just more
Yes and no.
honeys and
You're
bombers and whatever the fuck.
true, but I mean, in a control deck, you're not going to be playing too many units, so I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. And you're going to be supposedly being so efficient with your orders already.
But if you look at it
by
like
themselves.
if you see you play a Crusader and then you play a Convoy, that turns the Convoy into a mobilization, but it's still 3K. Then you have to realize you're still spending 1K more because you're playing a 3K Crusader on top of that. So it would be a 6K mobilization.
Yes, but it's separate turns. So because it's separate turns, that whole it costs
Well,
more
then
overall
it's
doesn't
liable
matter.
to being removed, and then you've just wasted 3K on a on some garbage.
Well, yeah, again, that's
But that
the
is
risk,
the
right? There's always
that
the
is the
risk.
plight of everything, you know.
Well, right, but then now you're playing against a control deck or somebody who's combined some version of control together with mid-range or whatever they wanted to do.
That's why control wants everything to be done in their hand, because they don't want to be ousted in a control mirror. But then you have things like Blackwatch, which are very good in a control mirror as well for that reason, because it subverts the battlefield
Right.
and goes straight for hand.
Which is why I potentially think that, because now you're trying to prepare for like every possible occasion, which makes your deck
Reliable.
not reliable, right? Which is why I think that potentially combo decks should be not necessarily have the highest win percentage, but have the best reliability in the sense that like if you get the combo off, it should be very hard to deal with. But it just
I think it's really funny because preparing for every situation and every scenario should make your deck really unreliable, because you'll 9 times out of 10 you'll have the wrong card for the situation.
Right.
But in one of my most reliable decks, which is a Pauper deck, it uses Awoken Giant, Bloody Sickle. It has a card for every situation. Yeah. Awoken Giant for frontline, Bloody Sickle for ping, Gunship Mission for backline, Hammer for big ground unit, Death from Above for a big unit that needs to be removed, and just all of those cards are separate, but they work together in a weird way.
They work together because they're so incredibly efficient for their cost. It's like God forbid they wasted credits on trying to move the units up.
Mm-hmm.
It's like either
But
they're
then
not they
to
just don't
get
play
even
units,
better
or B, they
value,
just
it
play them and
uses
get them wiped anyway, and just like hope to God he runs out of removal, which he won't because he's trading evenly with your units. So at that point, it just comes down to who has the better draw engine, which it's usually going to be the control deck.
But the thing is, though, you can sort of subvert that with cards like T-3485, which will give you
No, it
card
doesn't subvert it
advantage
enough.
in the opposite way.
It doesn't subvert it enough though, because you still have to play the field again. So because he's playing a control deck, if he's built one properly, he's going to have a decent draw engine, and he may be able to have a card back in his hands for you removing a T-3485, but you still removed a T-3485, a 5-cost card, probably for something like a hammer for a 3-cost card. So now he's able to. So what took you possibly
Okay,
your whole turn?
worst case scenario in there, you're up a card and he's okay. No, I'm thinking about that wrong. He plays a hammer that he gets rid of a T-3485. That's a 1-to-1 trade, but you've gotten a card from it, so it's now a 1-to-0 trade.
Right.
Card advantage wise,
right,
not value
but
wise.
he's also probably going to have a lot more draw cards than me, so that card advantage isn't going to last. He's just going to keep drawing more removal. And
Well,
I'm just not
that's
gonna
the
be able
point.
to play
You have to make it last, otherwise the deck isn't going to be good. That's the whole point of getting a synergy in your deck.
Right, but that's my whole point though, is that the removal deck or the control deck doesn't necessarily depending on the deck, but doesn't necessarily need to rely on synergy nearly as much as the combo deck or the mid-range deck. The mid-range deck needs to have things happen in a specific order to do well, and then not go up against the control deck where it just isn't allowed to have anything on the fucking board, and they're never going to run out of control because they usually have a decent draw mechanic.
Yeah,
and not to mention, it's just not fun to play against. It's like, yeah, you're correct that eventually in your scenario I would have card advantage by the end of the game, but it was such a miserable experience getting to the end of the game where I now finally have card advantage that it's like, yay, I won. God, that was miserable.
Well, I think not speaking from a control sense, there's a lot of underrated mid-range cards that need to be taken advantage of, like Death from Above. Definitely, Death from Above is insane.
It is insane. It needs to be
hardly any decks use it.
A random target unit dies. That's what it needs to say, so it can be countered.
Yeah. Blade of the Samurai can be countered, and Death from Above can, unless you're playing Doubting, or Ultra. Like counters do exist, but
very
the
specific
likelihood of getting that,
cards.
Yeah. But Gunship Mission, super underrated as well.
Yeah.
Awoken Giant, to an extent, it's very nice.
I don't say it's underrated.
Just straight up card advantage.
It's potentially better. No, I mean it's just potentially better draw mechanics in the game. But it's also draw and removal, so I mean, I think very
incidental health heal. I think the incidental health gain of Gunship Mission and We Can Do It are perfectly good enough to survive any Jaggro or burn deck, because with 4 Gunship Missions,
Gunship Mission only targets the back line.
Well, no, you can hit face. You can hit face with the Gunship.
Oh, well.
And then you've got you can use any other removal for the units in the front line: Awoken Giant, Bloody Sickle, Greyhounds.
It's amazing that your first thought about
T-19
countering.
howitzers, Katyushas.
Don't you find it ironic that your first thought to countering Rush is control? Even though Rush is supposed to be the counter, you know, on the whole rock paper scissors thing, Rush is supposed to be a counter to control.
I don't really. I gotta think on that one.
I mean, Awoken Giant.
I don't think there's a rock paper scissors. I think it's more of an iffy thing because Jagro can still counter artillery, and you can. My Jagro can anyway. Jagro has a lot of different variants. I think a lot of decks people take for granted have so many different ways of playing them that when you're talking about a wide variety of decks like Jagro or Control or Soviet value specifically, like there's Soviet Brit value, there's Soviet Japanese value, there's Soviet US value, there's Soviet German value. To group them all together is, I don't know, maybe I'm just doing semantics at this point, but I think it's definitely worth discussing the type of control or the type of Jagro that we're talking about.
I just found it ironic that your first thought was, and most people's first thought for handling just an aggro deck in general is control in this game, because there's so much control. That,
I think Jagro mainly counters combo,
which should be
because combo is trying to do things with their hand. Really, you think combo should counter Jagro?
Well, because combo is basically just mid range, but you're
or not Jagro specifically, but aggro.
Combos, yeah, because
combo to me is baby combo, Katyusha OTK, Tony
combo
OTK.
To me is like counter. It is like winter warfare with counter offensive.
99% of my decks are combo decks then.
Yeah, a lot of people play combo decks, and I mean it may
like
not be
Colonial.
I mean, combo decks do get mixed.
I think there's a difference between synergy and combo.
No, I think combo is something that is mixed in with all the other deck types. It's just how much combo is in your deck.
Mm-hmm. How much synergy is in a deck to where it becomes a combo deck?
yeah, basically. How much are you relying on things?
Is resistance a combo deck, or is it a control deck?
Which is why. Okay, see that's why I didn't think combo was actually a deck type when I first started this game, because this is really my first card game that I've gotten serious about. When somebody said a combo deck, I was like, you mean mid range? Because I didn't think combo was a deck type. Because I mean, there's combo with all the deck types. But I mean, now I kind of see what they mean, because you could just play a deck type that is basically like my ambush deck, where there's a little bit of combo in there, but it's mostly just unit efficiency. Just playing a shit ton of units that are just efficient for their cost, or just have a keyword that makes them efficient. Which I think is
so. If we're talking about combo versus control, I think Japanese Resistance is a very good deck to talk about, because it's not only controlling the board, it's controlling your hand.
Yes, it is a nice double whammy there.
It's very on the line of controlling combo.
Yeah,
and it's hard to tell whether it's 60-40 which way.
Right. On that note, I'm gonna have to cut this because it's getting late for me, and I haven't eaten yet. So.
All right. Well, until next time.
Yeah, where we rant more, because apparently we had no direction for this episode. We just kind of went off in so many different random directions.
Yeah, but that's how it is.
Oh God, are we gonna have to write a script to do work? No.
Maybe we gotta get some bullet points.
Yeah, yeah, maybe that wouldn't be too difficult.
Postcards.
Bullet points will work. We'll just write them in a notepad or something and just keep them on. Well, I have a second screen, so I can just keep them there.
Yeah.
But but yeah.
Anyway, till next time.
Till next time. It's write in the comments if this is going on YouTube, I assume, or somewhere.
I suppose.
I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah. So
Probably.
we will see what your opinions are and what maybe what people want us to talk about, because I'm sure we've missed plenty of things that could potentially be talked about. So there'll be more episodes. But see you guys later.
See you.